All right, Cousin Tone. Our next guest is a hobby purist who does it for the love of the game, brother. It doesn't get any realer than my man, Samuel C. Evans, a.k.a. the Sports Card Collector. Welcome, Sam, to the Cousins Collectibles podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate both of you guys for thinking about me and having me on your platform. And I'm looking forward to having a dope conversation. Um, it was crazy because I was scrolling through uh, my news feed and I saw something of you guys and I clicked on your page and I was like, wait, I'm not following them. So my apologies because I know you guys are following me and I don't know why I didn't click the follow button because normally I try to follow everybody who reaches out and take the time to connect with me and just build upon the human capital that I'm trying to create in this space. So my apologies for not clicking that follow button
It's all
the
good,
moment
brother.
you
It's
guys
all
came
good.
across my page.
It's all good. You know what I mean? Much love though. I know I came across your stuff through uh person that we'll get into a little bit later. I don't want to, jump the gun a little bit, but when I
Yeah.
seen you, I was like, who's this gentleman right here? And I was expecting, I really wanted, before anything, I wanted to ask you, I was expecting that bow tie. You know what I'm saying? And
I thought about it.
I was expecting the fit. You know what I mean? I was looking for, I was be like, the question is, how many bow ties do you own, bro? That's the real
Um,
question.
I think I think a few, like probably right before me and my wife got married, I like counted all my bow ties. So I want to say at that time I was like a little close. I was like close to 100, but since that time I bought more. So I was like, so like give or take honest number, I want to say anywhere between like 150 to 200. I got a lot of bow ties. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Now,
yeah.
would you describe your style as like, is that like early, yeah, like I say 1990s boys to men, like bow
You know
tie?
what? I think I'm like I like the classic like 1920s,
Okay.
1930s like Great
Yeah.
Gatsby look.
I got you.
You know
I
what I
got
mean?
you. Yes, sir.
Like Harlem Renaissance look. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like
yes.
so I got a lot of like classic old school bow ties that they used to wear like back in the day. That's reminiscent
Yeah,
of that style.
yeah.
Like that slim fit,
Mhm.
look. Um, plus I'm 6'6", so it, it fits me well, wears well. So, you know,
Yeah.
I just have this affection for bow ties. Like I used to wear neckties a lot when I changed like my whole get up in college. I went from like baggy jeans and jerseys, Timberland boots, and having a boatload of sneakers to
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
Now
Like
you got on that
button
grown man, you
ups.
got on that grown man
Yeah,
vibe. You know what I mean?
call it like the early days of like when swag was becoming a
Yeah.
trend in like the classic man look. You know what I mean? So um,
That's
a lot of
crazy.
if you're familiar with the movies Hoodlum with Lawrence Fishburne when he
Yeah.
played like Bumpy
Yep.
Johnson,
Yep, yep.
that type of look,
I
that type
feel
of
you.
look
Well,
almost.
you
Yo,
definitely
it's
Yeah.
pulled it off.
crazy. And Oz, I'll kick it. It's crazy
Yeah.
because literally when I was getting ready, I was like, dude, should I put on my bow tie? Like, I swear I was thinking about that. That's crazy that we're all kind of like, I
Uh,
mean, so
I,
yeah,
I,
man.
I was,
I thought about it, but I was like, nah, I got to show a different look. I'm in my lab, and when I'm in my lab, looking at my cards and thinking about content and just writing hobby blogs, this is like my place of comfort. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I try to
you
like
get
just be
comfortable.
like, yeah, low key with it.
So how long have you had this lab, Say? I heard you talking about the
Um,
lab. Like, describe the lab and what you got going on in there.
So the lab is the place where I just reminisce. I think about my first hobby run. I think about those moments growing up in North Philly. I think about those moments in Penn Treaty. I even think about the moments I have now. Just visiting local hobby stores, going to local card shows, connecting with people on social media, and it's just my element where I can create. It's also therapeutic because as a black man working in a predominantly white suburban high school, it can be it can take a toll on you at times. So it's also my space to like decompress,
Yeah.
relax, and just make sure I'm taking care of myself, because as an educator, every day I pour into people. Um, I pour into the youth, the teachers I support, and when you're in the business of giving to people, the people who are constantly doing that on a day-to-day basis, caring for others, pouring into others, oftentimes we forget to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's just a spot for me to take care of myself,
Love that.
and
Love
and
that. Yeah,
and
I know
just
exactly. You know what I
be
mean?
my authentic self.
Yeah, yeah, and that's for anybody, and we highly recommend anybody. You know what I mean? Because jobs can be very stressful, so
Yeah,
just to have that space, your comfort. Like you have your lab, I have my, this is my man cave. This is where I do all my, posting of my pictures and everything, and obviously where we do the pod. So it's always good to have your own personal space, like you said, to
yeah,
decompress, relax, and then it makes you a better person, not only for
yeah,
yourself but then for your family.
yeah.
So let's get into your backstory, man. Like before we get into anything, I just wanted to clear this up. Tony, I know we spoke about this. We're from Reading, Pennsylvania, not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've been on a couple podcasts, and people introduce us as being from Philly. We are
Yeah.
diehard 4 for 4 Philly fans. You know what I mean? We all about Philly. Don't get me wrong, but we're born and raised in Reading, Pennsylvania, the redheaded stepchild of Philadelphia. You know what I'm saying? So um,
Yeah. I
you were
mean,
born.
we call Camden our stepbrother. We call that East Philly. You know
Well,
what I
there
mean?
you
But
go. Well, we're
I
the
get it. I
stepchild.
totally get it.
So, but you were born and raised in North Philly. So
Yes.
tell us about, North Philly, how it was, man. Like, keep it
Um.
real. Keep it real though. Like, you know what I mean? Don't sugarcoat nothing. Give us
Nah,
the
I won't.
realness.
It, like any typical like inner city like upbringing. You know what I mean? The ups and downs, the highs, the lows, the good moments, the bad moments, the trauma. Um. You know, it's something that I'm appreciative of, because I think um, even now as a man, when I have my flaws and I have my moments of growth, but I'm appreciative of my upbringing, because and where I grew up at, because it helped me, one, get thick skin, two, survive any environment, and you know even though there it's a place filled with trauma, it's also a place with a lot of great memories. So North Philly is my home, and I'm gonna always be connected to it. I'm gonna always go back to it. I can always go back to it, um, and it's something I want my children to like understand, because you know uh, everything ain't got to be like white picket fences. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
but that's where I come from. And sometimes I say just a kid from North Philly who almost succumbed to um, the ill wills of that environment, but was able to take advantage of the opportunities that was given to me, and go to college, play basketball, come back to my city, and give back to students who look like me, then go back to school and further my education. Um, and now I'm living my dream in terms of like what I want it to become and my passion. And I always say I never work a day in my life, because I love what I do, even
Yeah.
though it's super stressful, it's super political, but I wouldn't trade um, it for anything in the world, because I have the opportunity to be a mirror for students who look like me, and then also a window for students who don't look like me. So I can help break down barriers, destroy stereotypes, and let them know that even though we don't look alike, there's magic in those differences. And if we learn to embrace them and engage in healthy dialogue, um, we can rid ourselves of a lot of the things that tear us apart.
Yeah.
Um,
Now,
so,
Sam,
yeah,
you talked about your last interview with FD. You was rolling with FD, so now you kicking it with the cousins.
yeah,
You talked about how I believe at 12 or 13 years old. You know, you used to collect cards,
Yeah,
and one time you just got all your cards, packed them up in a shoebox, and decided to throw them away, get rid of them.
yeah,
You know what I mean? You talked
yeah. It
about,
was.
you said life happened. Like, what? How does how do you know you go from an innocent kid to like, man, I can't do this no more? Like, how
Yeah,
does that happen, bro?
yeah. That was a crazy time in my life, and I still remember it to this day. You know what I mean? Like at 12, 13, seeing my father, you know, taken away from me in handcuffs and not knowing why. And then like later on finding out why, unpacking that trauma, and then all the things that I dealt with, you know, almost losing my life at one time, um, and just growing up and trying to find my way in my own maturation, like getting in trouble, being sent to placement, being on probation, being in a boot camp program, um, and then like just teetering on that fence of like who I wanted to become.
Yeah.
And at that moment in time at 13, I was like, well, I know I can't collect cards anymore because like I got to be the man in the house, or I have to be there, you know, for my siblings. I have to be there for my mom, um, and it's a time that I often think about because so much was stripped from me in terms of like having that honest like childhood. Um, and but I'm also appreciative of it because now as a man I can go back to those times and reflect and address some of the things that you know I try to compress and hold inside. So um, you know, like I'm grateful now because you know I understand it, and then now being back in this space that I left so long ago, and just looking at my collection and all the things that I've learned um, individually, the things that I've learned from people, the connections that I made, the friendships that I've fostered, um, the brotherhood, the sisterhood. It's just been amazing.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like I threw away some Michael Jordans and some Larry Birds and a bunch of junk wax cards at the time that I didn't know it was junk wax cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you know, and I look at it now like I got vintage cards, I got cards that I always wanted. Um, hey, you know, at the end of the day, I lost that moment, but I gained a whole lot more
Yeah.
in the future. So
Yeah.
I'm super happy.
No, I mean, your journey, Sam, it's an incredible one. You have a very inspirational story, just the things you went through, the losses that you've had. And it could have been very easy. Like you said, you were teetering. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You many people that we know, you know what I'm saying,
yeah,
fell on the opposite side. You know, either, you know, getting killed, going to jail, or just
yeah,
never doing anything with their life. And then we had a bunch of us that we all stuck together, made sure, you know what I mean, we're gonna get up out of here and we're gonna do our thing, you know, becoming professionals and just, you know, looking back on those experiences, man, it a lot of people don't realize, you know what I'm saying? Because if you know you're born with the silver spoon in your mouth and you have everything given to you, you just don't know what it is to grow up that way. So
yeah.
to hear that from you and to be able to relate to you in that way, you know, like I said, it's an inspirational story. Now,
I I
but
often tell my students, I'm like, man, if I could take you to where I grew up at, and you can stay there for 30 days, the stuff that the way you'll be acting or what you'll be saying right now, you wouldn't say those things. You'll be appreciative of the privileges and
yeah,
the access that is afforded to you simply because you live 13 miles away from a major city. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And there's a distinct difference in a student your age. Their world is totally different from yours,
yeah,
and often I have those conversations with a lot of kids, and a lot of them grasp it and take advantage of it, and even on both sides, you know, when I was in the inner city talking to my students, like, you know, you have to do more with less. You already have grit. You already have resilience. You navigated your neighborhood to get here. Now you got those skills. Now let's those raw skills. Let's hone those skills. Let's get better every day. Let's take advantage of the academics, of first class education that's trying to be afforded to you and provided to you, and take advantage of that. So that way you can not only change your trajectory, but change your community and change the people's lives that you love and care about.
Yeah. So
So
Sam, you're
it's
you're an
it's
assistant principal.
two
Yeah.
different worlds. You
So
know.
you're an assistant principal, right? Is that what you're doing right now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you're doing again, bro. Kudos to you, man. I love when somebody can take, something that happened to them that was bad, turn it into good, and then give back to the community. We appreciate you for that. So Tone, if you want to get on to the next.
Yes, sir. So, just switching it up a little bit and kind of the reason why, other than your story too, is your content. We're big fans of it, man. And talk
I
about,
appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. Talk about your vlog and kind of what gave you the inspiration to make a video log of your hobby journey.
So originally, right, in the middle of like a global pandemic, sitting at home every day, I like get back in the hobby, and like I had this like mindset and vision that like I'm gonna sell cards and I'm gonna make a ton of money. And like as I was going through that process, I'm like, that ain't me. That's not who I am. Like I don't have that hunger or that drive. You know what I mean? And I was
Yeah.
like, I have a good career. I mean, I make a good salary. You know what I mean? And I was just like, nah, that's not who I want. Excuse me. That's not who I want to be in this space. And I at first my lab was in my garage, and I'm like sitting in my garage, and I'm like, what do I want to do with these cards? And I had to navigate this new space of collecting because before, as a kid, like we built our collections through trades with the people in our neighborhood, or when I went to Penn Treaty, and like it's a different world. I got technology. I have all this access to. I can talk to people across the globe, and I'm like, no. I started to connect it to my job and what I do. I'm like, I pour into people. Um, you know, this is what I do as an educator. It's about storytelling, um, and 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 elevating people, and using my experience, my work ethic, my drive as an educator, what I model every day for students, so that way they can change and they can change their mindset, and through their mindset, they can change their actions. And I was like, yeah, no, I need to tell stories. I need to reflect. I need to reminisce, and I need to share that. And slowly but surely, like the hobby experience, like came alive, and it started, with a random like post, my very first one, introducing myself to the hobby, and like week after week, I just started to get more creative and build upon what I wanted this experience to look like. So I went from like, creating hobby blogs, then writing blogs, and then thinking of like unique ways to just showcase my collection, and then also finding ways to like connect with people and give back. Um, every week, I'm giving away cards from my collection, and not just like throwaway cards, like cards that are like near and dear to my heart, and like good cards. And folks can like check the receipts and look at my collection, look at my blogs, and see the type of cards that I've given away, to kids, to collectors in this space, um, etc. So that's what it's about to me. It's it's that single word that we always throw around in the hobby: community. And I just want to make sure I'm a part of the community and building this community, and really making sure the human capital that can make this community thrive is permeating throughout it. And that's what I try to do on every other week, with my content.
Yeah, and I see also too when you post a card or cards for that matter, you'll give a little description of what it is and who it is, the player and stuff, and you'll typically end it with who wants to trade. Not
Yeah,
this is for sale, not
yeah,
must move. Like let's trade, let's talk, and
yeah.
build that relationship. So I can appreciate that, man.
and a part of that is intentional. I remember I was at the Philly Card Show, and I told this to FD. I was at the Philly Card Show. It was my first trade night ever, and me, I was psyched. I was like a kid in a candy store because like I'm thinking about my first hobby experience as a kid. Like we built our collections through trades. Like we didn't build our collections because we were going to local hobby stores, every week. I was happy to be able to get a pack at Toys R Us or Kmart, when we had the opportunity to go there. But like amassing a collection during that time it was conversation. It was like, oh, you got that MJ. I want that MJ. All right, I got these Charles Barkley's or these Dominique Wilkins.
Mm-hmm.
I got these Spud Webbs, like those players of that time and that era. Or I got this cool insert. We wasn't using those terms, but like I got this card that's different from the other cards in this set. And like I wanted to be a part of that experience. And it was like crazy how kids like navigate this space now. Like their focus is money. And I think that entrepreneurial spirit is dope. But I also don't want folks to lose sight of like what makes the hobby magical. Not because of a financial transaction. It's the conversation, it's the trades, it's the stories. And when I do my random hashtag um Sunday post, I'm always saying like DM if you want to trade. You know what I mean? Like let's do a trade. We got all this technology, at our fingertips, and we could talk to people across the globe who are all in this community who collect various things. Why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, well said. It's funny because oftentimes I see these trade nights and it's anything but trade nights. It's just
Yeah,
an extension of the show. It's like overtime for the
yeah.
show. So I'm like, I don't know that people are really trading cards, but you
And
know,
like it's nothing wrong with that. Like
no, yeah, right.
I tell this to everybody. Make your money. That's just not who I am in this space. And I think, and that's the special thing about the hobby. And I always say this, like, how like we look at like Marvel and DC and we say like that's a multiverse.
Mhm.
Like I personally believe the hobby is its own multi-universe. And like everyone has the opportunity to create their own lane. It's a space of unlimited access, and we have to make sure we continue to promote that, and it's equitable, and everybody has the opportunity to thrive in this space. And it doesn't have to be about like financial capital all the time, which is great because it sustains the hobby and keeps it alive. But I think that's only one avenue of sustainability. I personally believe that the untapped potential is in the human capital. The untapped potential is in trades. The untapped potential is in people telling their stories, and that's what makes other people want to get into the hobby. Those are the things that we resonate with the most, because I mean everybody can't get rich in this space.
Yeah.
Um, because if everybody's selling something, and again, like, hey, like if that's your avenue and you committed to that, all I say is this: make sure your transactions with the people who are spending their hard-earned money with you is a two-way street, um, and it's give and take. So if they're always buying something from you, open up the door for them to sell something back to you so they can make money if they want to be entrepreneurs themselves. And I see a lot of people selling in this space where it's just a one-way transaction, and it's no like connection, there's no like good vibing, there's no like stories. And I
Mhm.
don't spend my money with people who act like that in the hobby. I only spend my money with the people that I connect with, that I know on a first name basis, that when we see each other again and we about to do a transaction, it's not even about what I'm gonna give you today or what I'm gonna buy from you today. How have you been? What's going on?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people who want to be investors and sellers in this place really need to like think about that, um,
Mhm.
because those are the people that's put money in your pocket.
I gotcha. And one thing, and then I'll kick it over to Oz. And I told him this the other day. It seemed that um, we spend a lot of our time on Instagram. That's where most of our content is, most of our
Yeah.
connects are, and all that stuff. And I don't know. I told him the other day. I said, "Is it me or is it like the same 5 or 6 guys selling the same 5 or 6 cards to the same 5 or 6 guys. You know what I mean? Like I feel like
Yeah.
I'll see, if I sell it to Oz and then he sells it, and I'm like, man, there's got to be more to the hobby than just this core group of cards changing hands within the same group
Yeah.
of guys. So I hope to see a little bit more and see that kind of take off and not be the same transaction over and over and over again. You know what I mean?
No,
So
I completely agree. And like I told FD, I always talk to Peter Pac-Man like he's my hobby goat. He's somebody I look up to in this space. Um, he would say he look up to me, but I'm just like, I appreciate it, bro. But like what you do is very inspiring. But um, you know, I I even forgot my thought, but it'll come back to me
Mhm.
yeah.
when it pop up because you know this to be in this space and to be a part of this community and see um, the amount of people thriving in it without the capital or without like a large following, like, and that goes back to what I was thinking about. I tend to focus on the everyday collector. Those are the people that I'm interested in. Like I don't get caught up into like the clickbait of like the big names. Like I want to learn from the everyday collector, um, because I feel like those stories. Not saying that the person who's like super known, like their story isn't authentic, but also feel like when you get to that level, to like try to stay relevant, it I feel like sometimes some things become a little contrived, and that's just my opinion, and
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
not me like hating on anyone. But I
Right.
think sometimes the authenticity is lost. So that's why I like to like connect with the everyday collector, because those stories are real. They're unique. Um, they're like and they want for certain cards are special. And it may not be like a one-to-one logo, man. It may be some 90s junk wax card. I want to know the story behind that. Why
Right.
is that
Mhm.
card special to you? And I think I just value that more.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's the educator.
No, I think it sounds like you've been eavesdropping on the Cousins Collectibles production meetings, but yeah, I mean that's exactly what we kind of try to get at.
Now, piggybacking off of that, Sam, I'm going to read something that you wrote down that when I read it, I was like, wow. So I'm just going to read this. It said,
Okay.
hashtag the hobby experience. Participating in the hobby is a journey, and your pursuit in the hobby can only be what you make it. So visit hobby stores, make connections, promote belonging, collect what you love, and participate in the human capital. So, first of all, truer words have never been spoken when it comes to the hobby. I mean, Sam, please break this down for our audience, for us. Discuss the concept of human capital because you're throwing that term around. I
Yeah.
want everybody to
Yeah.
really know what you mean by that.
So for me, that whole idea, it came from like in schools. There's this practice called restorative practices, and or in like the court system, it's called restorative justice. And a part of those things, it derived in like New Zealand, and in New Zealand, um, their children in those villages and their land, they were being taken from the government and treated a certain way. And the elders of the community was like, the way you're disciplining and treating our children, our future, isn't working. We have a better way. And the government was like, well, what's your way? And restorative practices were born, and it's like this communal, this social capital where like if someone does something wrong, you sit in front of the community and you figure out how to repair the harm, and you have these restorative conversations, and you actively engage in that conversation when you think about the victim and the perpetrator. So as I think about those educational concepts and those things that we use in schools, and the key word for me, like social capital, what is this? What is social capital like in its most simplistic meaning? And that's the everyday things that we do. Hi, good morning, how are you? Tell me about your day. Oh, I got this crazy story and what happened to me. Like, think about those conversations that we had all throughout our life with our friends after basketball games, football games, just sitting at the lunchroom table. Like, that's the human capital, right? That's the thing that binds us together. That's the thing that helps us understand each other. That's the thing that breaks down barriers, that helps us engage in uncomfortable conversations, so that way we can have a better understanding of each other. And to me, that's what the human capital is. That those daily social deposits. Every day when my students walk into the door, I'm giving them fist pumps and I'm saying hi. I'm making those daily deposits. So when they face with a moment of adversity, they know they have someone they can come to. And to me, like, that's what I try to create in a hobby in terms of like human capital. Every day I'm taking an opportunity not only to tell my story, but listen to the stories of others, and and have some takeaway from that story and learn from that story, and try to engage in a similar experience so I can feel the things that they feel. So now we have a common bond and a commonality, and we know how to treat each other. And then and for me, the next level of that is like how we honor each other's dignity, right? I don't focus on respect because I think everybody has their own definition of what respect is. um, and I think, when you look at the baseline of what respect is something that's earned. Like, you got to want to give someone respect. But I tend to focus on dignity because I firmly believe that we're all born with dignity. We're all born, we're all born with this inherent value as human beings. And the goal is, as we come up as infants, from infants, how do we nurture it? Do we have the tools to nurture it? What are we doing on a day-to-day basis to nurture our own inherent value, our own self-dignity? Because if we consistently do that as a people, it's easy for me to see the good in you and in you. And now our interactions, because we see the good in each other, when we are having difficult conversations, it's centered around uh, an experience of learning, as opposed to going back and forth, as opposed to being mean to each other, as
Yeah.
opposed to being volatile towards each other. So to me, that's what the human capital is. And oftentimes there's so much like hobby drama.
Hmm.
And I'm like, we're losing sight of why we're here. These pieces of cardboards are like conduits of change. They're conduits of conversation. They're
Yeah.
conduits of connections. And I tend not to get caught up in the hobby drama. Only thing I speak on and don't bend on when it comes to equity, when it comes to situations of like um, injustice, when it comes to situations of like bigotry and like racism, because I think that lives in this institution. When you look at the business side of it, in terms of like who are the people in control, and then who are the people on a product primarily, and then when you think about the different levels in the society, is it equitable? Do everybody have the opportunity to be successful in it in terms of like achieving and receiving and gaining financial capital? I don't think so. I still think it's an industry that's based on the good old boys club, and that's just my opinion. But I can have some facts to to back it up. Um, but I think if we rely on the human capital, and we commit to it, those things that we see inside and outside of the hobby will like decrease, and we'll focus on the things that matter, as opposed to saying like, well, let me do something to sabotage this person because they got more followers than me, or um, let me down talk this person's credibility. You know what I mean? Or because this person have a different opinion than me, or this person is having a courageous conversation about something that's factual and then a hobby, let me discredit them, let me disfame them.
Yeah.
um, and I think a lot of that happens in this space, and we tend to lose sight of like why are we here?
Yeah.
And we're here because as adults who are still in this space, we have memorable moments of collecting cards. And because of those memorable moments, we persisted in this space. And yes, the way we collect has changed, and what we do in this space has changed, but don't lose sight of like what brought us
Yeah.
here. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's
I
just my
agree.
2 cents.
Yeah, no,
But
no.
what do I know? I'm just a black man in
Now
America.
you know.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. And I was actually just talking to my brother a little while ago, and he was asking me, because I'm getting ready for my daughter's wedding, and I've been having this conversation the last couple of months how all my money that I was directing towards a hobby now's going to my daughter's wedding, which is totally fine with me, but it's giving me
yeah,
time to reflect on what I've been collecting, and the hobby in general. And then I told my brother, I said, bro, you know what, man? I said, I don't care if I collect another card, man. I said, honestly, I said, what I'm doing with Tony and this podcast and talking to these collectors and the people, the guests that we've had on, and the people that I'm talking to people in Australia. I'm talking to people in Hawaii, like all kinds of craziness. I'm reaching out, we're building a community. I said, dude, I love the cards, but it's so much bigger than the cards.
yeah,
It's that, like you said, human capital, and that's what it's about. And like you said, the drama and the nonsense that goes on in this hobby, it's just it gets frustrating, and it's upsetting because you're taking something that's so beautiful, you know what I mean,
yeah,
and you desecrate it with nonsense. And I'm just hoping that as we all grow, because a lot of people are just coming to this hobby within the last 2 years, you know, and we came back because of that nostalgia, because of the feelings that
yeah,
these cards gave us. So now we're here. We want to continue. We want to be in a positive manner, but with all that nonsense that's going on, like I said, and like you said, it creates this negativity that's just it's uncalled for, and really that's why we're doing this podcast is to talk to people and to let them know, like, listen, you can come back. It's a safe spot. We're gonna have fun,
yeah,
and we could talk cards and we could talk about life, whatever you
yeah,
want. But it's building that community, man. That's what it's all
yeah.
about.
Facts. I couldn't agree with you. Couldn't agree with you. And those are the type of people that I want to thrive with. Um, and again, like I said, I guess that's just the educator in me, and to the next man, it might be pie in the sky, and like, well, like, who cares? You know what I mean? But like, I mean, that's just who I am,
Yeah.
and I think those are all the innate qualities that we all possess as human beings. The question is like, what are we doing to like to showcase them?
Yep.
And like even when I first met like Peter Pac-Man, I came across his page, and like from one black man to the next black man, like we always have these moments where like we got to like figure each other out before we want to connect with each other. And like I told him and I had like a real like personal conversation. I was like, yo, man, I apologize for judging you, and I ain't even take the chance to get to know you. And like now even working on myself and making sure I'm always coming from a place of love and utilizing a growth mindset. I always have an open heart and an open door for people in this space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I try to take the time to get to know them and to honor the time that people, give to me in terms of, liking a comment,
Yeah.
commenting on a comment, sharing their story, dropping me a DM,
Yeah.
and just trying to like, honor their time and be authentic with that and connect with them.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Sam, you talk about human capital, and I often talk about 6 degrees of hobby separation.
Yeah.
Right. So recently you posted, and it's crazy the timing. I'm like, Oz, I don't know why this thing keeps happening, but it's strange. And I'll get into a little detail later on that. But like, so you just recently picked up a card,
Hmm.
1953 Bowman color Orestes Mini Minoso, right? A second year card. So
I got it right here.
all right, yeah. Flash that up on the screen so that everybody, yeah, look at that thing. Very
Beautiful.
beautiful card.
Nice.
So, IPC Roberto Clemente.
Okay.
And so it turns out that Minnie was one of Clemente's heroes. So, and like you say, every card has a story, right? And I want to hear your story. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that's
There it is.
that's the way to so. And Sam's flashing up a Clemente there. So that's a and so the day I think after, or even the day of, I reached out to you and said, hey, we if you have time, if we'd like to talk to you. And with like I said, within a day or so, you then go and post that card. And I'm like, dude, I hit Oz right away. I'm like, listen, man. I'm like, I said, I don't know why. Again, these little weird things happen, but I'm like, I talked to this guy, and he's like, hey, I'm gonna come on, and he posts this card, and it just so turns out to be the guy who IPC's hero. So I'm like, so
Yeah.
talk about that card and the story behind it, and all that good stuff.
So I want to say, like, getting back into the hobby, right? And thinking, and then going back to my first hobby run and thinking about the first vintage card I ever seen. I actually wrote a hobby blog about this. I was sharing like one of my Ted Williams throwback cards. I think it was from like the 60s or the 50s or something like that. And I talked about like how I came across vintage cards. And my next door neighbor, the first vintage card I ever seen was a Hank Aaron card. I believe it was like a 68 Hank Aaron card. And I fell in love with vintage cards. And prior to that, had no idea of like what vintage cards were, let alone like these Hall of Fame players. Like I knew who Hank Aaron was because you heard about Hank
Right,
Aaron, him hitting all the home
right,
runs. And like fast forward, to today, like I'm always learning about like unique players, and like historic players. And when I think about that 1952 set, like everybody wants the Mickey Mantle card. It's a great card. Can't argue that. But I never forget the moment I first saw the Arestas Minosa 52 tops card. It was in a local hobby store in Media, PA. It was a beautiful card. He had it in a showcase. And I walked in, I said, Bob, tell me the story about like this player and this card. Who is he? And he goes and he gives me the history. And I look at the card, but something said, it's not for you right now. Don't buy it. And that's how I am when I go to hobby stores. Like I can walk in there, I can buy a card, but I see cards and like if it's not meant to be right now, I won't get it. And it's always off of a feeling. And I think about it. I do some research on a player, figure out who he was. He played in the Negro Leagues. He played across decades. He was one of the oldest players to get a hit in a major league. He's like a legend for the Chicago White Sox. And I was like, all right, today's the day. I go back to the store, and he's like, you just missed it. Someone bought it a couple of days ago. I was like, man. So some time go by, and I hit up one of my local hobby stores in Horsham, PA, and I know the guy there. Every time we go there, we talk cards, we talk life. He tell me stories about his football days when he played at Allegheny High School, everything. And we started talking about like 50s baseball cards, and I said, man, I would love Restus Mini Minosa 1952 tops. And he looked at me. He said, I got one in the back. It's pretty beat up, but I got one in the back. I was like, can I see it? And when he gave it to me, the feeling hit me. I don't know. I couldn't describe like, it's just one of those things like, this is it. You know what I mean? And
right.
purchased the card, and the rest is history. And I actually got it right here.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, very
Yeah.
nice. Actually, very nice. Yeah, that ain't
Um,
that beat up.
yeah. And I was like, when I got home with this card and I sat down in my lab and I looked at it, I said, this is what the hobby is all about. Sometimes there'll be cards that you want, and in that moment, it's not just for you, but if you be patient and you speak things into existence, um, when you least expect it, cards are going to come your way. Like for a while, I was building this set of like my favorite NBA rookies from the 1970s, ABA, NBA,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking for a Spencer Haywood rookie card, and dead ends, roadblocks, like couldn't find it. And one random day, me and Skylar were in the mall, Montgomeryville Mall, and there's a card show going on. And I run into a collector that I always get cards from, and he has a Spencer Haywood rookie card. And I'm just like, I was like, yo, you can't make this stuff up. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
see what I mean? Yeah, there's
Like,
definitely something to it, man. I don't know what it is,
and
but it's definitely something out there with
yeah,
these cards and the
so
people you come across and
yeah,
the certain cards that they have. It's super strange.
and to me, like those moments define the hobby experience.
Yes.
And that's what makes the hobby experience
Hmm.
great. Moments like that. That's just like how I got my, 86 Flair Michael Jordan card. You know what I mean? Like that's one of my Grail cards, you know. And my Grail list is not like everybody else's Holy Grail list. Mine's is different. It's unique. It's the cards that I know. It's the cards that I loved as a kid, and like being in the space now is cards that I want. And like I got my Jordan 86 Flair Jordan card at a local hobby store that I always shop at. And I was like, I walked in and I saw it, and I was just like, man. And like I waited a couple of weeks. I sat on it. I thought about it, and I called him up. I said, "Is it still there?" He said, "It's still there." I said, "Hold it for me. I'll be in to get it." And like, the
Yeah.
conversation we had that day, and like the rest was history. And like
Yeah. That's
I
what,
tell everybody, like, there's no card in this space that's out of reach, and don't be afraid about like by the like dollar sign that's on it. I'm telling you, there's no card in this space that's out of reach. If you treat people with kindness, if you connect with people, you build positive relationships.
Word.
You can get any card you want,
I'm
man.
about to
and
get
and
that
that's
Honus
just
Wagner, baby.
like that. That's not me being cheesy, or that's not
Nah,
me
nah.
yeah.
like trying to be manipulative. But like that's the facts of like my experience, like coming back to this hobby during a global pandemic, and then looking at the collection that I have amassed.
Right.
Like building my 86 Flair set. Like, yeah, I spent some money on it, not a whole ton of money, but I think because of the amount of things that I put back into this hobby and I give back to this hobby, like there are people who just sent me 86 Flair cards. You know what
Gotcha.
I mean? Or like people who know me and like they have a car and they're like, I'll give you this price for this car.
Right.
Because you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I just believe in those type of things. If you do good by people and you do right by people, and you foster that relationship and that transaction is two
Mhm.
way, um, you can get any car you want in this space.
So let's build on that, the 6 degrees of separation that Tony was talking about. So
Okay.
Sam, we got a friend in common that you dropped his name a couple times already, and we hold him in high regard.
Yeah.
He's near and dear to our hearts, and I know he's been a tremendous influence on you. Of course, I'm referring to our boy Peter Pac-Man. Tell us about your relationship with Peter. Peter, for us, man, he came on when we were just starting. You know, we
Yeah.
we we were following Pete, and I was talking to Tone. I said, man, it'll be great to get Peter on our podcast. I don't
Yeah.
think he'll do it, but I mean, you
Yeah.
should reach out to him. And Tony was like, yeah, I'll reach out to him. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And Tony hit him up and bang, hit us right back. He said, yo, y'all said all the right things, all the sight words that I wanted to see. It's all good. I'll be on your show. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, snap, So then we had an awesome conversation with Pete, and since then, we've kept in contact. So he's a great dude, man. So talk to me
I mean,
about Peter Pac-Man. You say he's the GOAT.
yeah.
He's your GOAT.
Yeah. I mean, he in my eyes, he's the hobby goat. Like he epitomizes everything that the hobby is and can be, um, for the next 150 years through his authenticity, to tell a story of the hobby from its inception, all the turbulent times, um, to the positivity, to the honest conversations. Like me and Pete, like random weekends, random days or random weekends, like we text throughout the week or like we call each other and we just hit each other up and like talk. We talk hobby. We excuse me. We talk life and like he's I consider Pete my brother. Like and my only hope is that he'll say the same thing about me. And he's just a thorough dude, and I often tell him this, man. I was like, I often like every once in a while apologize for like me prejudging him because when I first came across his page, I saw this hobby content, and then like also thinking about this, like when I came back into the hobby, I was like, man, would I see anybody who looked like me in this space now? Because I know coming up what access to the hobby looked like for me and how we built our collection. And I already know what kids are dealing with now. So I know there's not a lot of black and brown kids who are thriving in this space. Now there are some. There are some who love this space and love just the collectible space in general. But like being on social media and tapping in and starting to follow things like the hobby and who do you collect, I'm like scrolling through and I'm like, I don't see anybody who look like me. And then when I came across this page, I was like, this for show? Or is this for like, or this is who,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
this is like who he really is?
yeah.
And like, when I finally had the time to like really talk to him and build with him, I came out was completely honest with him. I said, "Yo, man, I owe you an apology." And he's and even though him and I are like close in age, I think Pete's 39, I'm
Yeah.
38. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
he's my big brother, and I got nothing but respect for who he is and what he's about, and the honest dialogue that he attempts to have um, with people about this space. Because learning hobby history is necessary.
Yes.
Um, from like how cards derived, of how like people who look like us were put on cards and sold when we were like on a plantation, to you know up until like segregation, where a lot of people don't know this. Prior to 1888, professional baseball was integrated, and it was the unwritten rule, the under the table conversations that owners had, and baseball was segregated until the 1940s. You know what I mean? So um, just learning about that history and how like during that time when cards was out, you didn't see anyone like us being celebrated on cards, but the only way you saw us on cards when we were on a plantation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
I
man.
just I respect him. I respect everything he does. I respect his whole team. uh Job, Marcus, they some dope brothers, and I just appreciate everything that they are about, and I'm happy to know them.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, I was blown away, because like when we saw him, we wanted to get him on, but then when he started talking about the history and diving deep, I was like, good
Yeah.
Lord. Like, you know what I mean?
And
It
that's
was,
important. Like
yeah.
if we look at the hobby 150 years from now, and I always say this, I hope I'm alive 150 years from now. I want to live to be an old man. And I tell my wife this all the time. And I was like, yo, I've seen it. Like, I see myself as an old man sitting at the table, you and me holding hands, and we watching our children's children while everybody eats dinner. You know what I mean? And like, if we look at the hobby now to the next 150 years, we have to make sure it's a space that's getting younger. It's a space of inclusivity, and it's a space that's equitable, and it's a space where everybody can thrive and be successful.
Yeah.
Black and brown people, women, across the board, um, because we don't want to go back to that time where the hobby like tanked. You know what I mean? And it was just one group of people who were controlling it. And
Yeah.
if you look at the history of the hobby, you see that throughout its previous 150 years.
Hmm.
So it's necessary to understand that. And I always tell, like I told FD this, um, if I didn't love what I do as an educator, I would work in this industry because a lot of the things that I do as an educator is very transferable to this space. You know, I know what engagement looks like, feels like, sounds like. I know sustainability. I know how to sustain things. Um, you know, I know the business side of it because running a school technically is like a business. You know what I mean?
Right.
There is a side of it where you have to be business savvy when you're looking at budgets, and you're trying to balance a sheet, or you're working with a school board to get the things that you want and need, or you working with a department to get the things that they want and need so students can thrive and be successful. Um, so I always say that if I didn't love this, I would. I totally would. I would literally be the spook that sat by the door and figure out a way to infiltrate the space and bring to light a lot of the things that the folks up top are missing, and get them to understand the importance of making sure this is an equitable space and an inclusive space.
Gotcha. Now you talking about love. Let's talk about passion. You got two passion
Yeah.
projects: your lost and found card of the week and your slab of the day. Talk
Mhm.
about those projects, what they mean to you, and what you're looking to accomplish with those guys.
So the slab of the day, that just like it came out of like left field. Um, because I was looking at my like content schedule and I was just like, I want this like nice routine where I can get like where it's like fun and it's engaging but it's consistent. And like I didn't want to do like 2 days of like posting like random like hashtag cards. And I said, I'm looking at all my slabs and my slabs are just growing. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do a slab of the day. But it's not gonna be a photo I shoot in my lab. It's gonna be a photo because I only collect basketball, baseball, and hockey cards.
Mm-hmm.
I don't collect football cards. That's my own personal boycott. Uh, we could talk about that offline because I don't want to offend no one. But you know, I was a diehard Eagles fan, and I didn't watch them win the Super Bowl.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I didn't go to the parade or anything. You know,
Yeah.
so um, but that's another story for another day.
Yeah, we
So
got to get into that later
yeah.
on.
Um, so what I decided to do with my slab of the day, with my baseball cards, basketball cards, and eventually I'm gonna start doing this with some of my hockey slabs that I got. Um, I go to like random like basketball courts or baseball fields throughout Philly and where I live,
Mm-hmm.
and I take those pictures, um, to just give that visual background. One as a way to like bring people's attention to like what these spaces look like in inner city, and the hope is that someone sees it and like kids should have a beautiful place to like play at and engage in, and like that's the underneath the table message.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the forefront is the card, and it's just another visual to like, oh wow, it's a beautiful card, and just giving a history on the grade and when it was graded, why I like it, um, the pop report, you know. But the slab of the day has something has become fun because like I look through my slabs and I grab like 5 or 6 slabs, and then like I just chart my path through like my old neighborhood or through like parts of Philly or the outskirts and the suburbs, and I just find these spaces to take pictures. And then I also do it intentionally with the hope is that if there's kids there on the court, they ask the question like, "What is that? What are you doing?" And it's another way to expose them to the hobby,
Mm-hmm.
um, and get them interested in
Yeah.
cards.
That's a good
So
idea.
that's the story behind the slab of the day, and that's why that one is important. My lost and my lost and found is special because it's just another way for me to like look through my cards, right? Like I have three of these, right? I have four. I just picked up another one. These are like the Shaq rookie cards.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I like look through my PC and like here's a cool card to give away and to bless someone in the community with. Um, and besides not looking for some monetary value, for me the value is helping someone get a card that they may have they always wanted, or putting a smile on their face, or giving someone a card so eventually that card can go to someone else. So
Gotcha.
like just that line of like, oh, where did this card come from, and now who has it? It's like that old saying of like, you know how you can look at a dollar bill and you can track the serial
Right,
number.
right.
It's like that. Like, oh, this card came from the sports card collector, and now I have it, and now I'm giving it to you. Um, so that's special too because that's just my way to always make sure like I'm giving back to this community um, that gives me so much, that gives me so many memories, that gives me magical moments with my daughter when we're in the hobby store or when we're in my lab together and she's showing me her Pokemon cards or like wanting to see my cards. So um, it's special. Those two things are special.
Yeah, I got
Um,
you. And I know I've heard you. I think I heard you say you rather give a card away than sell it. So that all kind of
yeah,
ties into those two
yeah.
projects. So that's what's up.
I've had people offer me money for certain cards, and I was like, I don't sell cards, but like I'm not going to give you this card because this card is like special to me. But I'll trade. Let's trade. Let's trade some
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But I'm just I'm not in it for. I don't know. I'm just not in it for the financial capital side of it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's not me being fake. That's just me like being authentic. Because once I made that shift, I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
You know. So
And building off of that, you know what I mean? Like Sam, there's two things in this hobby that really, really get under my skin, and Tony can attest to this. My number one thing is narratives in the hobby,
hmm
and the second thing is gatekeeping.
yeah,
And I was listening to your interview with FD, and I heard those two things come up.
yeah.
And I was like, And I just wanted to get your opinion. What you think about narratives in the hobby and the term "quote unquote" gatekeeping. What those mean
yeah.
to you?
I don't know. I think people use narratives to stay relevant. I think
Mm-hmm.
people use certain narratives to to gain followers. Um, for me, I always tell people, don't follow me, follow the experience,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I want you to resonate with. So it's not about like how many followers I gain. Um, let's connect to this experience together. So I think I think that's when narratives become bad because people are just looking at a number on a list and it's like where's the substance, like how are you giving back, how are you connecting to people, what does the two-way transaction look like, or
Mm-hmm.
you just want something from someone. That's why I'm always taking the time to like comment on someone's post when um, they comment on my post or like like replicating that back,
Mm-hmm.
reciprocating that back um, to them. That practice, showing love. So that's my thought about like narratives, or like narratives that are used as like clickbait. Like with the whole like, and I hate that I'm mentioning it, like with the whole like Pokemon card scheme and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and like was that really about like educating people on like how to know what's authentic,
Yeah.
how to, understand like a certified product, or was it about just to own the 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 bandwidth or the mental space of folks for that week.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you can get some attention, or you can, I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Gotcha.
And
Hey.
you know, when it comes to like gatekeepers, like by nature, I'm a disruptor as an educator. I think the greatest form of activism that anyone could take in this life is one to educate black and brown kids, but also to be an educator in general. Um, because through that activism, you can push people um, to seek their own liberation through reading, writing, and talking, because they can become enlightened and they can have a clear understanding of the world. And I don't know, I hate the notion of gatekeepers because that means you're trying to prove your superiority over someone, and you're stopping the advancement of other people, and you're stopping other people from thriving in this space because they may be doing something a little unique and it didn't come from you, so like you downplay it,
Yeah.
or like you like try to like defame like their viewpoint, or something they want to share or give back. So I don't know. I get a little weird when people act like that, when they
Yeah.
like the knower, like, oh, I'm the knower of all information. Like as an
Yeah.
educator, I tell my students every day, I don't know everything. That's why I do this job, because I'm a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
So like I want to learn from you guys too. That's like when I work with my teachers and I do observations. I'm not sitting in there. I'm not sitting in those conferences acting like I know everything. That's why I center my conversation around like questions where we can like engage and talk about it together. So that way you can develop your own takeaways, and it's not just me telling you what you did wrong or
Yeah.
telling you what you did right. So that's why I kind of shy away from those two things. And I also try my best not to make like what I do about me, and I try to make it about the card, and I try to make it about the story, and I
Hmm.
try to make sure that I'm always like connecting with others and making sure their story lives in what I'm trying to like share
Yeah.
to the community.
And Sam, that definitely comes across in your content. That's the main thing when I see your content and everything that you do, man. It's not about you. There's too many people in this hobby that make it about themselves, and it's like, listen, bro, there's nothing wrong with a little flash here and there, but once you try to become bigger than the hobby, then it's like you've gone too
Yeah,
far, and there's way
yeah,
too much of that, man. Way too much of that
yeah.
going on, and it's again, it is what it is.
I I try to be super authentic, in who I am, um, and doing it from a space and place where like people can see who I really
Yeah.
am. Like me as the collector, there's no difference from me as a father, husband, and educator. In all of those areas, I want to learn, I want to grow, I want to get better, I want to hold myself accountable. I want to be accountable for my mistakes, because I made a lot of mistakes as a husband. I made a lot of mistakes as a father, across the board.
Hmm.
And, that's just me going on my path to just like nurturing my own dignity, and really unpacking what my own inherent value is. But most importantly, taking the time to see the value in others and making sure I'm honoring their dignity and I'm doing right by them.
Amen.
Yes, sir. So, well, Oz, you know what? I'm gonna kick it to you. Oz got to ask you something about a certain 76er, and
Okay.
So, you know, talking about narratives. Now there was a pretty big narrative in the NBA. There
Yeah.
was two gentlemen, both had excellent years, but I believe one deserved the MVP.
Oh, Embiid is the MVP.
Yes. So
Like,
let's talk narrative. Jokic, again, I don't hate Jokic. I respect Jokic, but Joel Embiid, my man. There's Jokic. Listen, he even has Jokic cards. We ain't hating on Jokic, but Joel Embiid was the MVP of the NBA. There it is. There he is.
Yeah.
Nice auto from Embiid. Talk about, you know,
I
Joel
I,
Embiid.
I think it's two things, right? It's analytics, right?
Mm,
We live in an era of analytics and like being data driven.
yeah,
And I don't have nothing against data. Like in my world as an educator, like I have to understand data.
yeah,
That's the only way students can grow, and that's the only
Mhm.
way I can support teachers. Um, However, I think oftentimes we become too data driven and we forget about the eye test.
yeah.
And I tell this to everybody, and this is just my opinion. If you take Joel Embiid off the 76ers, they are a 11 seed at best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you take Jokic off the Denver Nuggets, they are a playoff team. That's just my opinion because I think they got depth in all their positions. I think with the guys that they do have, like Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., um, uh, Aaron Gordon, like all those guys, like they got depth. They
Yeah, but they'll
can.
say Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. weren't playing, so that's the reason he is
I'm
MVP.
talk. I'm, and I even think even without those guys, because when you look at the West,
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the bottom half of the West, Denver was seated correctly.
Yeah.
They were right where they were supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I think they were right where they're supposed to be. And I think if you take Jokic off that team, because what were they again? What was their seed again?
No, it was a 6
6.
seed this year, right?
6.
Yeah. I think if you take Jokic off their team, they only drop to a 7 seed.
Or they'll be in the
That's just
play-in.
my opinion.
They'll be in the play-in tournament.
Or they be in the play-in.
Yeah.
But without Embiid, Sixers aren't a play-in team.
Nah. Sixers are trash,
They,
bro.
even even with James Harden on that
Yeah,
team,
exactly.
they're not a play-in team.
Right.
So,
Well, you
like
seen him against Miami without Embiid.
exactly,
Yeah.
just his mere presence alone, he changes basketball games.
Yeah.
Jokic has some presence, but he doesn't have the presence of Embiid.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion because I watched both of them play, and they both great big men. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think when it comes to certain things about their game, I think Embiid is a much better rim protector.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jokic is a slightly better passer. I think that IQ could be even, but most people will give Jokic the edge.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when you talk about sheer talent, skill for skill, I don't think Jokic can match what Embiid does on the basketball court.
Nah. Nah. Nah.
And when I say like talent and skill, I'm talking about speed, agility,
Right.
movement, force, playing with your back to the basket, how you make moves, all that. And I'm
Yeah.
still not taking, but in this era of analytics, and it's the guys who never played basketball, who literally all they do is look at data, right? And because of that data, the voters get caught up. Oh
Yeah.
wow, Jokic has a PER that's next to Wilt Chamberlain. They get blown away by that.
Right.
But there's something very special about the eye test.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this to everybody. I said the Miami series proves why Embiid
Right.
is the MVP. Look at the first two games without him against Miami, and look at the next two games with him when he
Right.
was playing against Miami. Miami could not do anything with him, and even his first game back, he only scored 18 points.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you know
You know what
what?
I mean? So I mean,
Yeah.
that's just my opinion.
No, I hear you.
That's how I feel. I think for 2 years he got robbed. I mean, I even think last year there was some case you can make that he was the MVP.
Yeah. Until he got hurt. Until
But
he got hurt, he lost those couple
but
weeks.
they
And,
said he didn't play enough games, and I
yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm at the point now, like what does he have to do?
Tony,
What does he have to
I
do?
said, yo, exactly what you just said. I said, Tony, I said, if he does not win it this year, I don't
Yeah.
ever see him winning it. Because
No,
what does this man have to do
because
to?
we also got to understand like what the NBA is right now. It's a
Yeah.
wing driven,
Right.
guard driven league.
Yes.
And that's why Embiid has to play the way he plays, because people are so blinded by analytics. Because in their mind, analytics tell you, oh, a fast-paced game shooting three-pointers that gives you the best chance to win
Right.
and be more efficient. No, slowing the game down and playing with your back towards the basket makes you more efficient and gives you a greater chance to score higher percentage shots. Because if you got MB on the block and he's demanding double teams and triple teams, the guys who are on the wing, they're more than likely to make the shot because they have enough time to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's in a situation where there are people on his team who don't know how to really get him the ball when he's on the block, when he does the work. Now I got the spacing that
Yeah.
I got, and you're not giving me the ball, and now I'm
Right.
already moved out, and now I got to work extra hard and use my
Yeah.
guard skills
Right.
to get the shot that I want. So
Yeah.
um,
Uh,
I think
I,
he got robbed, but
I hear you. I will say that, and with analytics and the evolution of fantasy sports, um, nobody watches the games. Hardly anybody
yeah,
watches games.
no,
Okay, I can tell you that. I mean, just in my own experience, my son's 24 years old. He does not watch a game from start to finish. He'll look at a stat line or watch a highlight on whatever, and then that'll just be okay. So and so player is this, and that because of this, but you didn't watch the game.
yeah,
Everybody's just
I
looking at it's just it is what it is.
yeah, I know for me, I only like I watch basketball games and I watch college games. Like I can watch a whole college game from the beginning to the end. But when the NBA comes on, like there's certain games I'll watch from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
But majority of the NBA season, I don't turn the game on until like towards the second half of the third quarter, and I watch the whole fourth quarter because that's when basketball
Yep.
becomes real.
Yeah.
Like that's when you got the right pace. Guys are running
Right.
sets. Like the first half of the game, that's about guys getting their numbers,
Yep.
so they can justify the money that they make,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's a fact.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
hear you.
fact.
Yeah, oftentimes I'm like, yeah, I'll just
Yeah,
the playoffs. These playoffs were a big
yeah.
example of that
Oh yeah,
where
yeah,
I'm like, dude, this game isn't even these games are garbage. And then, fourth
yeah,
quarter, then okay, I'll watch now
yeah,
because it's
yeah.
almost like this is crazy, man. These dudes are just it's a totally different game. But so hey Sam, so we're gonna end this like we always do. For that newbie coming into the hobby, what piece of advice would you give
So
them?
before we do that, can I
Yep.
show some cards?
Oh, sure. I mean, well, you can, whatever, just give a couple here and then, just make sure you describe them for those that are,
All right.
watching, I mean,
So
hearing on you know,
the question is, what do you want to see?
well, you just give us two or three of your, they don't even
All
have
right,
to be super crazy rare, just something that's near and dear to your heart and, kind of,
something near and dear.
yeah, something
All
that
right,
has
I'll
a decent
show.
story. But, and
So
then,
I'll show this. This is my first tobacco card.
okay.
Okay. Now who's that?
Yeah, this is uh, Ty Morgan.
Okay.
Not like a real known player,
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
but he was a good player. But the significance about this card, Wagner's name is on the back, and
Okay.
it
Oh,
lists the
okay.
whole set. So this
Huh.
is from 1909, the
Okay.
Philadelphia Caramel Company.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I never saw that. So it has
Yeah,
a checklist
Cy
on the back.
Morgan.
Huh.
That has
Nice. So I
I
never
got
never even heard of that one with it. Well, we don't I don't know those cars too well, but it has the
yeah.
checklist on there.
Corky didn't tell us about that one.
Yeah, yeah, we got to get on here with that. But yeah, show us one more, and then that way we'll just keep it moving before we
Yeah.
get kicked off the air.
And then
Oh,
this
look at
is
that.
Is that Penny?
Penny Hardaway.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the 93 top finest.
Yep.
Mhm.
And then this is probably my favorite Wilt card.
My man Will.
This the year he was in the
Conquistadors.
ABA. He didn't play though. He was a player coach, but he was still
Ah,
under contract with the Lakers.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that year didn't go too well for him as
Nah,
as a coach.
nah. I mean, Wilt was a great player, but he'll tell you himself, like he wasn't a good coach.
Nah, nah.
He, I mean, that
Sometimes.
was the same thing. That was the same thing with Bill Walton. I mean, Bill Russell.
Bill Russell.
Towards the latter part, after he won that Celtics championship as like a player coach,
Right.
I mean, he struggled coaching in the NBA. So did Magic Johnson. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's different for those guys who are stars. I mean, they
yeah,
have high expectations. It's like, why can't you be like I was? And so sometimes that it's crazy how
yeah,
sometimes the scrubs are the better coaches. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Yeah, it just
For
works
sure.
out that way. But hey, so Sam, you know, piece of advice for a newbie coming in. What would you tell them to help them have the best hobby experience possible?
The best advice I can give someone new coming into the hobby is one. I would say just be yourself, right? Um, two, collect what you love, and don't compare your collections to others. Um, be confident in your collection. If you feel as though you have the best collection in the world, let that be your truth. And the last and most important thing, and this is like a two part, um, build relationships and make sure you participate in the human capital, uh, because that's how you're going to learn and grow. I've learned so much about cards coming back to this space simply because of just dope conversations. Um, and I guess that's the historian in me because I really appreciate it. I really appreciate those conversations. So that would
Mm,
be my advice to folks.
well said. Hey, and then before
Yeah.
we get out of here, just drop your where people can find you on Instagram or anywhere else that you have any content.
Yeah. So you can find me on at the Sports Card Collector. Collector is abbreviated. Sports is abbreviated with a Z in it. Just trying to be unique in my own little way.
Mm,
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I post just different hobby thoughts on Twitter, or I share cards I picked up, and I share those on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, but I just post my recaps to TikTok. I
gotcha.
have a YouTube. I have a YouTube page. I'm still working on it, but all I'm doing is just uploading, old videos and hobby vlogs. So, but mainly for all like new content and everything I've done um, since I created the hobby experience. I think I could say that because I didn't see a hashtag that said the hobby experience before I started using it.
Right.
So folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I coined that phrase. And if I didn't, I'll give credit to whoever coined it. But prior to me getting into the space, I didn't see anyone
Right.
using it. But yeah, anything you know related, new about the hobby experience is all on Instagram at the Sports Card Collector. And I just want to say thank you to you guys for giving me the opportunity to share my story, share my thoughts. It's been another dope experience just connecting with dope people, authentic people. And I just want to give my flowers to you guys and say you guys run a dope professional show, high level, thoughtful. I love the questions that you guys sent me, very professional, and I'm looking forward to coming back on in the future.
My man, appreciate that, brother. And we thank you for coming on. And like I said, from day one when I started seeing your content, and just last week, it was a couple weeks ago, I was just like, "Yo, Tone, man, sports car collector, brother, you gotta hit him
I
up.
appreciate that.
Gotta hit him up.
I
We gotta get him
appreciate that.
on."
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I
brother.
got, I got. I mean, now that I know where you guys at, I definitely got to come out to Reading,
No
and we got to
doubt.
get together and build and have some conversations.
I would say we could go ball, but you probably kick my ass. You know what I mean? I ain't messing around with you on the court.
No, we can play on the same team. I heard some
Okay,
ballers
there you
out.
go.
I heard some ballers out in Reading, so we
Oh
can play on the
yeah,
same team. We can
you
do
know
some pickup.
Danielle Marshall,
Yeah,
Lonnie Walker.
yeah.
Sure. But yeah, man, we appreciate you coming out. And Oz, take us home, brother.
Yes, sir. As always, man, don't forget, keep focused, keep positive, and keep collecting. Yo, Tone, bring the beat back.